government is on the verge of stepping in to protect British Steel. Its Chinese owner is withdrawing from the plant, which it says is losing £700,000 a day. It means the taxpayer could be about to pick up the tab to save the business and the 2,700 people it employs in Scunthorpe.
Newcastle, that makes CO2 output worse, not better. Net zero, by the time of the next election, could be the next Brexit.
You once called for a referendum on net zero. Do you still want one?
Well, I was just teasing them, really. I was just teasing them. No, this could be the next Brexit. And what I mean by that is where the political class are just hopelessly out of touch.
You won't believe this. Right now, Britain is losing £700,000 sterling, 0 pence a day, keeping a dying steel plant barely alive. And yet the same government pouring that money down the drain is spending billions abroad and importing coal all the way from Japan, while our own coal sits untouched in Cumbria. It sounds insane because it is insane. And Nigel Farage has had enough. Standing in the heart of Parliament, he didn't hold back. What follows is a full-blown political detonation you wouldn't want to miss. And this is just the beginning.
Miserable. We're getting back our independence. It's great.
I am not miserable. I am genuinely worried.
We're a great country, aren't we?
And you have helped bring about an act of economic and political suicide, and that we are going to go into rapid decline.
How is it political suicide
and more
to make your own laws in your own country? Or do you loathe democracy so much?
Ding, ding, ding.
No. This point's fundamental.
Democracy.
What is wrong with running? What is wrong with running your own country?
Let me ask you this about democracy.
Should we be self-governing?
When are you people? When are you and Johnson and Gove going to be held to account for the pack of...
Let's rewind a little. Farage and his team made an urgent trip to Scunthorpe just days before this fiery House of Commons appearance. Why? Because the clock is ticking. There were just 3 working days left to save British Steel, a 100-year-old plant.
Hello, Bev. Here's Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, you want to nationalise British Steel. Who would pay for it?
Well, it won't cost anything to begin with because it ain't worth anything. It's very interesting that, Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, said today that Jingay, the Chinese company, were acting in bad faith. Well, you know what? Richard Tice and I, and to be fair, Ian Duncan Smith, were saying this 5 years ago. Don't sell it to the Chinese. I've also learned today there was quite a good offer on the table from the biggish firm of
Thousands of jobs, a community on the edge, and yet the government, they were busy putting on a bit of theatre. A Saturday sitting in Parliament as if that alone would fool people into thinking they cared.
on environmental and net zero policy with the Conservative Party really in about 3 decades. People are screaming, oh my God, we're all going to die. Well, tell you what, have a think about this. Huaneng, who are a Chinese producer of energy, that one firm produces more carbon dioxide than the whole of the United Kingdom. Tomorrow, I'll go through, statement by statement, what Rishi Sunak says this afternoon, but get a sense of perspective.
Farage saw through it. This is all for show, he said. A PR stunt to make Labour look like they're on the side of the working man. And the real kicker came when they let Port Talbot close just last year. You see the pattern now. But hold on, it gets even crazier. And as we continue, you'll see why this didn't have to happen.
Term time has begun. There is no RAAC concrete in Westminster. Yep, the kids are all back at school and they're busy. Yesterday is a really big day. It's the third reading of the energy bill. Now, this is all about us becoming compliant with our net zero targets and a very major push for renewables, in particular, the emphasis being with onshore wind. And you might have seen Ed Miliband in that clip on the news a moment ago.
Back in the day, the British government had a solid offer from a Turkish steel giant ready to take over British Steel and keep it running. But guess who they chose instead? Jingay, a Chinese firm with a shady record and no transparency. We warned them, Farage says, referring to himself, Richard Tice and even former Minister Ian Duncan Smith. Don't sell it to China.
Next few days. So we have to take it over or we fail to be the only major country in the world that is not a primary steel producer. So all very dramatic. Tice and I went there in the middle of the week. We made a big statement. We said there were 3 working days left to save the steel plant. They've opted for a Saturday sitting for the drama of showing the working man and woman in Britain that Labour are on their side. But of course, they allowed Port Talbot to close last year. So that's what today's all about. It's all a bit of theatre. It's Labour saying, look, aren't we the heroes? We're saving industrial Britain.
And the reason why will shock you. Since that deal, Chinese ownership has turned into a financial black hole. They haven't published accounts since 2021. They're bleeding money, the plant is aging, and nobody knows where the funds are going. And now, the same ministers who ignored the warnings are acting shocked. They're having us over, Farage says. And they have been for 5 years. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Because here's what makes this even crazier.
Saying, look, we've got to stop this ban, we must build more onshore wind. There are two things going on here. One is the continued cult of net zero, that the UK must be a world leader, we must get to net zero more quickly than any other developed country. The second is the continued belief that renewable energy is plentiful, free and cheap, which frankly it has never ever been, and goodness knows how many times on this programme we've been...
Farage wants the plant nationalised. Yes, you heard that right. The leader of Reform UK, a party that believes in small government and low taxes, is calling for state takeover of British Steel. Why? Because he says it's a matter of patriotism.
Actually, there is a manufacturing disaster going on. Aluminium gone, cement gone, refining going. Our net zero policies are literally deindustrialising Britain.
Is it being driven by your pal in the White House, Donald Trump? 25% tariffs on UK steel?
Nothing to do with it. Have you noticed 25% tariffs on aluminium's not being discussed? Do you know why? Both the plants are closed down. Yeah. And steel, we've only got one left anyway. It's nothing to do with that at all.
You've got an amendment to this bill today. You want to prompt an immediate nationalisation of British Steel. Well, you might peel away some Labour MPs to back that.
Well, let's see what happens. I just think today's a short...
This isn't just any business. It's our steel. It's used in our defence equipment, our infrastructure, and our future growth. And just when you thought it couldn't get any wilder...
Losing £700,000 a day. We're spending billions on Ukraine. We've got 5 years left on each of these two ancient blast furnaces. One of them is nearly 100 years old. I mean, is this really a business you would buy if you were actually in the private sector?
Don't trust the figures the Chinese are giving you. They haven't published accounts since 2021. They're having us over. They're having us over, and they have for the last 5 years.
What's Reform up to? Why is it saying nationalise British Steel? You're seen by many as being a right-wing party, a low-tax party, but you encourage greater state intervention. Are people getting you wrong?
Well, because we're patriotic. We're patriotic.
But you can't be that. There are bills at the end of the day. You can't just wave the flag.
He drops the numbers. The UK is the only major economy where steel production has collapsed so dramatically in the last decade. Other countries are expanding. We're falling apart. And Farage blames one thing above all else: net zero. Yes, the same environmental policy praised by the mainstream parties is, according to Farage, the silent killer of British industry. And this is where things take a shocking turn.
Of intermittency and the need to back it all up, let alone the fact that cost-wise, it just doesn't work without subsidy. But there's something else going on in this bill, which I believe to be far more sinister. And frankly, even though Parliament's just come back, I am totally astonished at the lack of media debate and coverage. We'll find out later on this evening what amendments have passed and what haven't, so we'll know the actual shape of this legislation before it heads to the House of Lords. But there are, unbelievably, it seems to me...
Let that sink in. Shipping coal halfway across the world. Spending more, polluting more, just to say we're green on paper. It's a system that makes zero sense, and Farage isn't the only one saying it. The workers in Scunthorpe are saying the exact same thing. We'd rather use Cumbrian coal than import it from the other side of the planet. And what happens next will leave you speechless. As Farage sees it, this isn't just about energy. It's not even about steel anymore. It's about something much bigger. This is a strategic national asset. Without it, we are at the mercy of foreign powers. That is a threat. But wait, this next part is what really matters.
family, community, country. This would devastate Scunthorpe. Now, say this was an industry that was an old dying industry, we'd have to accept it and find something for 3,000 families to do. But it's not. I mean, the government last week announced a great big theme park in Bedfordshire. That's going to need tens of thousands of tons of steel. They've announced an increase in defence expenditure. That's going to mean more steel. I mean, we're the only major country in the last decade and more whose steel production has collapsed as dramatically as us. And frankly, it's the Conservatives that...
So, what's the plan then? Farage lays it out plain and simple. Nationalise the plant. Take control. Cut energy costs. Bring in buyout specialists. Rebuild from the ground up. And here's the most important part. Do it fast. Because the plant is losing £7 million every single day. Time is not on Britain's side. But who's going to pay for it?
In this bill that would allow for the creation of criminal offences. I'm going to repeat that. Allow for the creation of criminal offences if businesses, and here's the rub, individual householders don't tell the truth or don't meet up to new energy requirements for their houses. It seems to me to be truly an...
That's a harsh truth, but a revealing one. The business is in such bad shape, private investors won't touch it. And that's exactly why the government needs to step in before the steel disappears forever. And if you think that's bad, just wait. Because the collapse of British steel is just the latest symptom of a much deeper rot. Aluminium? Gone. Refining? Gone. Farage paints a bleak picture of a country systematically dismantling its own industrial backbone. And all in the name of an environmental ideal that's backfiring in real time.
Climate Change Secretary on the front bench, you probably saw him from your position too. He looks a bit queasy. I mean, is it all unravelling net zero? Luton Airport expansion, saving British steel. We're shipping in coal from Japan to keep it going, not using coal in Cumbria.
Well, quite. I mean, everyone can see how ludicrous it is. There is a perfectly good anthracite mine in Cumbria that could produce this coal. And when we were there in Scunthorpe in the week, Richard Tyson and I, they said we'd much rather use Cumbrian coal than be shipping it in from the other side of the world.
And he's not just pointing fingers at Labour. He turns his fire on the Conservative Party too. It was the Tories who pushed net zero into law. It was the Tories who said China would be our great economic partner. And now, we're stuck with no steel, no coal, and no clue. But here's the part that nobody saw coming.
In some ways, I think what's really happening is this. The public are waking up to how stupid these policies are. This mass wave of idiocy that's overtaken all the...
But you've got grandchildren. This is for them that we're doing it, isn't it? That we're suffering now for them, aren't we, Nigel Farage?
No, this makes no blooming difference at all. If you look, when Redcar closed down in 2015, right, big steel plant, 2,800 jobs. Redcar closes, and the firm that closes it announced the next day.
Farage says this whole mess is about to explode into something even bigger. So, what does he mean by that? Simple. Just like Brexit, net zero has become a massive disconnect between the political elite and the public. While MPs pat themselves on the back for their climate policies, real people, steelworkers, families, whole communities are being thrown to the wolves. Because while they were shutting down steel plants, guess what else the government was doing?
Yes, you could be prosecuted for providing false information about your house's energy efficiency or for the obstruction of an enforcement authority. This takes us down the direction where we will all have to have meters. Meters for water, meters for gas, meters for electricity. I'm still fighting like crazy against Thames Water, who keep sending me these...
Announcing massive new defence spending, green-lighting giant theme parks that will need tens of thousands of tons of steel. That's right, they're demanding more steel while making sure we produce less. And you won't believe what happens next. Back in Parliament, Farage faced off with a panel questioning the economics of his plan. The steel produced at Scunthorpe is some of the best in the world. For military-grade projects, quality matters, and if we fix our broken energy system, it can be cost-effective again. And then he said something that really hits home. And that's when things took a turn for the unexpected.
Finally, Donald Trump, a lot of this goes back to him. You're playing the game. You're not talking to the White House. You're trying to support Keir Starmer. But shouldn't you be giving him a ring and just say, come on, give us that trade deal?
I've been very, very, very...
But really, it isn't just about steel anymore. It was about who we are as a nation. Farage spoke of family, community and country. Values that he believes are being lost in a cloud of bad policy and globalist thinking. If this was some old dying industry, he said, I'd say let it go. But it's not. We still need steel, and we're acting like we don't.
Question for our panel then, Nigel Farage, is if we do use the British steel and we use it for the defence business or for the Bedford Universal site, is that not passing on the cost to industry? It inflates the cost of all of our steel.
Well, number one thing to say is that the quality of steel that's being produced at Scunthorpe is pretty much the best in the world. So quality, particularly for military equipment, hey, and you know what, for big parks and everything else, that matters too. No, if we get energy prices right, it'll be competitive.
Farage isn't just angry, he's strategic. He knows this issue resonates with voters. It cuts across class, party and geography. It's not left versus right, it's common sense versus insanity. And he's betting that the public is ready to push back. For now, he's focused on Reform UK, the party now climbing in the polls. And by the end of this, it all makes sense. Because whether you love him or hate him, Nigel Farage is sounding the alarm on something that's happening right before our eyes. And if he's right, the collapse of British steel might just be the moment that wakes the country up. Kindly let us know your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.